Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. I was just very sort of touched by the two experiences here. In 2008, there was a war between Russia and Georgia. And I actually went at that time to Estonia, where they have a large Russian population. And we were talking to the Russian population there about what was happening. And during the meeting, they brought in a wonderful man who was about 80 years old, ramrod straight, and he was an old Soviet soldier. But he came from this place, South Ossetia, which is all in that region, and is very... And I said, well, can you tell me what's going on and what you think? And it was all being done through translation. And he said, yes, we're getting terrible reports from there. This is how it came to me, that they've been burning villages. This came through, and I said, yes. And then what else? And they went on, and he said, yes, and my granddaughter was raped, and my brother was beheaded. And I said, well, hold on a second, I haven't heard anything about this. That would be in the newspapers. So we went back through the translation. I said, what, that was, what, in the past couple of weeks? He said, oh, no, this was in the 12th century when they were doing this. And I think a lot of us around the room that are familiar with conflicts understand that the conciliation and forgiveness that you're talking about is bred from a conflict, which is bred from another conflict, which comes from how people are brought up and educated. And we're seeing this now, we have seen it in the Middle East constantly, not so much in Africa, but in Asia and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to read to you a speech from a very successful global leader of the past century, and see if we can work out who he is. Because what is happening, and I've seen this happening a number of times, say in Syria, is that we have had, you were talking about politicians there, we had a drought that hit Syria in 2008. And that drought drove hundreds of thousands of people to the cities. The drought was due to climate change, which we hear talked about all the time. And those people went to the cities, were driving up prices, until it all became too much, that they started rebelling against the regime that couldn't handle it. And my question about politicians is, when we see this coming 5 years or 10 years down the road, why do we only do something about it when the victims end up in our living rooms and on our television screens? And I think that is an absolute something that needs to be addressed. And this is something that, you know, the sort of national leader, I'll leave the country out, says, it's unsettling to think when a nation loses trust, not just in itself, but in worldly justice. During this whole time, we hoped, we begged, we protested in vain. The international financial sector stayed brutally inconsiderate and squeezed as much as it could out of our people. The statesmen of the democratic nations remained hard-hearted. No one listened to our wretchedness of our unemployed. No one cared about the ruin of our agriculture or our industry. At this time, when all hope was gone, when begging was proved to be futile, when protesting did not lead to anything, it was at this time that a particular political party was created, rather like we might see Sinn Féin or something like that, was created from one basic insight. The insight that one is not allowed to hope in this world, nor beg, nor lower oneself by protesting. Instead, one needs to help oneself. Can anybody imagine who actually said those words? They were said on January the 30th, 1940 by Adolf Hitler.
Wow.
I thought that maybe.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
He thought he was a victim.
Exactly.
And that's what victims do.
Yes.
I'll leave you with that.
Excellent.
Do we realise, particularly spotting in, do we realise how profound was what we had just listened to? And when you knew who said it, it takes on, my mind's just in turmoil listening to you. Thank you for sharing that.
I don't know, I was doing it as some research, but it struck me that if I had, at the time that I was doing it, just replaced Germany with Russia,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or any.
or any of the conflicts that you... I just came back from Auschwitz, incidentally, and I recommend that anybody who hasn't been there just goes there, because it pinpoints what can happen if victimhood is allowed to become the oppressor,
Yes.
and then institutionalized, and then carries out its work.